All right, good afternoon, students. Welcome to instructional video 3. I promise to keep this one short. I do want to go over tonight the topic of identifying and understanding a social problem. This is very important because it is the problem within research which is at the foundation of any research project. It doesn't matter if you are operating within the social sciences, or if you are operating within the discipline of the so-called physical science, chemistry, biology, physics, etc. You don't have a research project unless there is some kind of problem or mystery to solve. So the problem is the driving, the engine, the motor force of the entire project. And it is important to understand how you can identify one so that you can then develop these problems into projects. And pretty soon you'll be asked to start developing your own independent research projects, and they all need to be grounded, connected to a social problem. Now I say a social problem because for this class we won't be doing science papers in chemistry or biology or anything like that. All of our papers, all of our research projects will be looking at things that are going on in society, problems and issues within society, so that we know what's going on in this world, so that we have some experience thinking about them, writing on them, criticizing, developing critical analyses of them. And my goal is, again, as I said at the very beginning of this course, to get you as fully prepared for PIMUS TPR, which is the course that you take in your second summer, as possible. And PIMUS TPR stands for Problems and Issues in Modern American Society, term paper research. So knowing what a social problem is crucial, and it's going to take up a lot of the work. A lot of the work that we deal with for this entire class will involve looking at social problems. It seems, or you would think it would seem, very obvious because we live in this world. You turn on the news and you're constantly being bombarded with different problems and issues. Political corruption, the coronavirus pandemic, schools shutting down. What's another one? You just pick one. The economy, teetering on a recession. So many problems, right? So again, you would think that it's very obvious, but I have seen in my experience that it's not always the case. Sometimes I have seen students, over the course of teaching research skills and PIMUS TPR, I've seen students want to talk about things like, what can I do to become more efficient with my homework? How can I make new friends easier? I'm very shy. All right. One student wanted to write about what happens to gum when we swallow it. I kid you not, right? And again, I'm not, judging these students because, they didn't quite have a clear understanding of the kind of problem that we are looking for these types of research papers. Well, first and foremost, a social problem for that's going to stand for our research papers is not some kind of personal individual mystery or concern. What I do with my keys? I can't find my keys. Where are my keys at? That's a personal problem. That's not a social problem, right? How can I not get so many unprepared? How can I be more efficient in my work? Those are interesting personal questions and important personal questions. If you can't find your keys, you need to find your keys. If you're getting too many unprepared, you need to figure out what you need to do to get less unprepared. But these are not social problems. So again, I want to give us some context and a definition of what a social problem is. And then for assignment 8, we're going to look at a couple of them. So where does a social problem come from? Well, I want to give just a very quick, short history lesson because it's important, because it's the underlying context that we have for understanding a problem. So in the 17th and 18th centuries, there were two major revolutions: the Democratic Revolution, which led to the Revolutionary War in the United States, as well as the French Revolution, the revolution in Haiti. That is the Democratic Revolution, which led to the ideas of democracy and liberalism, which I'll get into a bit later. Alongside of that, you had the Scientific Revolution, and it's based on the idea that, or the Enlightenment, or the idea that science, logic, and reason should be the primary sources of human knowledge in the world. So the Democratic Revolution on one hand and the Scientific Revolution on the other gave us a vision of what the ideal society should look like. So what does that look like according to the Democratic Revolution and the Scientific Revolution? Well, one, science is superior to myth and superstition. All people are equal under the law. The government exists through a consent of the people. All politicians are public servants. The writ of habeas corpus: you are innocent until proven guilty by a court of your peers. You then can go on to ideas of free equality education for everyone, no discrimination, no religious bias, racial bias, bias based on sexual identity, etc. So this is the ideal society based on democracy and the Enlightenment. So I say all of this, and I did say I was going to keep this video short, and I'll promise to do so. That is the backdrop with which we identify a social problem. So one way that we think of a social problem is the manner in which it goes against our ideals based on democracy, based on science, of how society should be. So gross economic inequality, racism, science being ignored because of fake news or superstition or myth or whatever. These are examples of problems that we know they're problems because they go against the ideal of how society should be, how it ought to be at its best. So that's one way of thinking about a problem, something that violates or go against our ideals of society at its best, how it should be. Another way of thinking of a social problem is just simply something that has a negative, destructive effect on a large group of people within society. So you can think, for example, of environmental crises. Obviously, this coronavirus is a huge problem because that's an example of how the ideals of science and democracy and something that's negatively affecting a large group of people come together. Because as a result of the virus, not only are people getting sick, people are dying, but it prevents us from doing things like voting. It makes it difficult for people to go to work and make money and provide for themselves. It makes it difficult for people to get an education, things of this nature. So it's important to have this understanding of a social problem and what it is and where it comes from as we start to explore some of the literature, the articles, the news pieces, the information that I'm going to be presenting to you. In sum, social problem is at the very heart of all research. A social problem, as we understand it, comes from the ideal society proposed by the democratic and scientific revolutions of the 17th and 18th century. A social problem is also defined as something that has a very negative effect, destructive effect on a large group of people. These are just basic definitions, and we'll sort of expand on this as we go along, but I wanted you to have that working understanding as we move into assignment 8, which is happening right now. Thank you for your time, and let me know if you have any questions. Bye.